Thank you very much.
Kaufman is Alive. I look at comic books new and old. Today I'm looking at an old comic book, Bloodshot #1. This is by Valiant Comics. This came out in February of 1993. So 32 years ago this month, this comic book came out. It's pretty hard to believe. I think this is the first Valiant comic book that I've reviewed on my channel as well. This is a comic, I got when it came out. Maybe a couple years after it came out, I was able to pick it up. This is a comic you can notoriously find in dollar bins. It had a $3.50 cover price when it first came out. So if you bought it when it first came out, originally off the racks, you overpaid. This came out during the speculator boom. I think a lot of folks figured this was going to be a collector's item, a highly sought after issue, for years to come, but it just didn't turn out that way. It's got the cool, foil cover here. Actually, it's kind of interesting. It's not the whole cover that's foil here. It's just like the drawing, and it's actually on a card. You can feel it. It's like raised off of the paper here and like glued onto this cover. So it's not the full cover like Marvel would usually do, or DC even. So right away, the Valiant foil cover almost feels cheaper than what you would get at Marvel or some of the other bigger companies. So the artwork here on this cover is by Windsor Smith, and he's one of the corporate executives at Valiant. And, of course, he's a very famous artist, did a lot of work on Conan, a lot of Marvel Comics, Wolverine, and things like that. So, starting their own company here in the 90s, Valiant Comics, they are still around today. I'm sure they've gone through lots of corporate restructuring over the years and different owners, I would imagine. I don't know the full history of Valiant, but certainly has not made as big an imprint on comic books as Image, which came out around the same time. So we'll get into this comic here. The cover is on some like nicer paper too. It's like some nice cardstock paper on the cover, and then the interiors have a bit nicer paper as well, a little bit nicer than what you might get from a Marvel comic during this time period. But this does feel dated, this whole issue, and I'll be honest, I might have read it when it first came out, when I bought it, but I probably had not read this comic in like 30 years. And so I picked it up and read it again all the way through so I could give you a nice full review of this. And I mean, I gotta say, story-wise, I feel like this holds up. Artwork-wise, it definitely feels a bit dated. And even maybe when it came out, it might have even felt a bit dated. So we got Kevin Van Hook is the writer, Don Perlin's doing the pencils, Bob Wycheck is the inker, and Jade Maid is the colorist. So, and I don't know if you guys remember, they actually came out with a Bloodshot movie about 5 years ago. It actually came out right before the pandemic. I was actually working at a movie theater for about 2 days, and it was when this Bloodshot movie came out. And during my training, I was training to be a bartender at the bar there, and I ended up quitting because the pandemic hit, and I was like, I'm not going to be able to work in a movie theater bar during the pandemic, pretty clearly. So, but that Bloodshot movie came out. Vin Diesel is that actor's name, I believe, and from the Fast and the Furious movies. He starred as Bloodshot, and I got to see it for free after my training one day. They were like, you can just go watch a movie. So I went and checked out Bloodshot, and, comparing the movie to this comic book, which, like I said, I hadn't read the comic book in probably 30 years. So I kind of get to compare the movie to rereading the comic book now, which is kind of cool. And it's pretty similar, honestly. This Bloodshot character, there's this shady organization that is creating these super metahumans. They've got these nanites that control the healing powers and like the body functions the of the person, and that's kind of how it works exactly in the movie. They even use the term nanites. He is, basically Bloodshot is after revenge against this corporation for taking away his humanity, which is essentially what happens in the movie as well. So, and we'll go back to this first page here. This is kind of how we start. So we get a narrator. We don't know who's narrating. I actually thought it was this guy narrating at first because he's like got his finger in his ear. You kind of feel like he must be narrating, or maybe it's the guy reading the paper. It's actually none of the people at all on this first page. So, and these people here are doing like a drop off in the middle of an airport, and the narrator even says so blatant about the drop, like they're in a bad Cold War movie. And then I don't even know what happened. I cannot tell from the artwork what happens here. She like shoots at this guy, and he goes down. We've got the cop who said you're under arrest. He's holding his gun, but they get shot like right through their head, apparently from somebody not even on the page, which is true. You turn the page, you get the double splash, and it's Bloodshot, and he's the one who shot them right through the head. But it's just hard to tell from the artwork what's going on. It's very confusing right off the first page. And the way they draw gunshots in these Valiant comics is super weird. It's very different from how Marvel or DC would draw gunshots then or now. Like normally you'd have, the artist actually draw the outline of the gunshot fire there. But in this one it's like color, it's just there's no like black lines to signify the gunshot. The coloring just does all the work, so it's really weird. Here's where we learn about the nanites that emulate his white blood cells. So he basically has a healing power. He's invincible essentially. A lot of characters I noticed in the 90s, started taking on that kind of trope of just gun-toting and invulnerable, basically. You had like Deadpool, Wolverine to an extent, Savage Dragon, Bloodshot, just a lot of characters. Luke Cage kind of is like that as well, where it's like you're bulletproof, you can't be killed, you've got a healing power. Definitely was being overused in the early 90s. So, and the artwork in here is good, and like I said, it feels even a bit dated for even this 1993. There's plenty of violence in this book, which I feel like separates it from other Marvel comic books of this time period, where you would not get people getting shot through the head, fingers getting cut off. The blood is actually red instead of black. This guy gets like sliced right in half here. It's just the kind of violence you would not see in a Marvel comic. So I do appreciate that. I just think the way it's kind of colored or drawn isn't the best. So we get a pinup, which is really nice as well. This is something Image did a lot as well, which you never really see at Marvel or DC, are like these pinup posters in the middle of the comic. But this is actually the same drawing as the cover. It's just got this, I actually like this better because there's actually a background here. Like we've got the, we've got this machinery down here, just kind of random shapes, a flame, and then there's like nothing in the background. And I think that kind of hurts this drawing. But here in the pinup, as you saw, there's some stuff in the background there, so I think it just helps with the overall drawing. Now, Bloodshot, his costume, I don't know if it really works too well. He's got a really dumb haircut, and he's got like the shells as a necklace band around the back of his coat there. Very weird. And he's got like the white skin with the red circle. Almost makes him like feel Chinese or something, and or Japanese, I'm not sure. But he's actually Italian, so just kind of an odd design choice. But he is going against like the rising star corporation ran by Mr. Owatsu. So maybe they're trying to create these, like, I don't know, Japanese super soldiers or something. But he gets attacked by these two thugs who work for the corporation. They're trying to take him back in. The corporation doesn't want this Bloodshot guy out there doing his thing, you know, which was pretty much the plot of the movie, too. Pretty simple plot, but easy to follow. There is, like, some, you know, a little bit of, like, mafia intrigue and espionage going on throughout this book as well, just to kind of give it a little bit more plot. But and I like this action scene too. This is actually really well done. They're fighting on this dock. They go off the dock onto this boat, and they're fighting on the boat. Some nice storytelling here from panel to panel. They fall into the water, and then they're fighting in the water here. I think the coloring might have been able to be done a little bit better on these pages because it's just a lot of blue, but you could see maybe the colorist even thought that himself and was like, well, I'm going to color one of these panels. But I really like this panel too. They've got this chain and this rope, and they're tying a Bloodshot to this the pole of the dock there. I just really like the shadows in the water there, the shadowy figures. That's really cool. So Bloodshot, he gets tied to this pole, and then he realizes that like one of his superpowers is to control blood, and he realizes they have the same blood as him because they've been created by the Rising Star Corporation, so he's able to explode their brains, he says. And another cool drawing, but again, I don't really like the coloring on here. I understand it's underwater, but you could have done something else. So he explodes their brains. He climbs back up to the dock here. This guy's explaining that, you know, Bloodshot bungled up this important operation at the Heathrow airport that we saw at the beginning of the issue. And he says, you're looking for the mafia connection. This is revenge then. They hurt someone close to you. And he says, kind of. They took someone away from me. And then he says, me. So again, he's just coming after them because they stole his humanity. So, and then at the very last page, we see these gangsters. They discover the secret identity of who Bloodshot is. They thought he was already dead, but they find out he's alive. So he's going to have some more people coming after him in the next issue. And that's it for Bloodshot #1. An interesting time capsule. I'd say go read this at least once just to kind of, you know, get a feel for what was going on in 1993. You could see all the things that like Image got right and Valiant got wrong, kind of encapsulated in this comic book here. So thanks again for watching. That's all I got. Please subscribe if you haven't yet, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Go read comics.